السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد عبده ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وسيدنا المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وإمام كبلتين وجدي حسن وحسين. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran Kareem that we as Muslims, inshallah, should make sure that our life, our death, our sacrifice are for Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. I loosely translated that. But basically, our life, our death, our prayer, our sacrifice are for Allah, the Lord of all of the worlds. And inshallah, there have been many much more learned than myself, including Al Bari and some of the other great tafsirs of the Quran that have gone into great detail about that. So inshallah, I would like to humbly add some thoughts to that. Our life. What type of life do we live? Inshallah, Allah has told us in the Quran that He has created men and jinn, but to worship Him. So this was the purpose of us being created, was to worship Almighty God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, this should be our purpose or our goal in life, is worshiping Allah. Now, people who don't have any understanding, primarily Western Orientalists, say, oh, that sounds like a dull or boring life, that you just involved in just worship. But that's because they don't understand that everything that a Muslim does, when he or she does it in the proper way, is a form of ibadah. That everything we do, when we do it in a proper way, is a form of ibadah. That inshallah, that when we go out, you'll see some du'as posted on leaving out the masjid. Some du'as posted on what to say when you leave and what to say when you enter. There's du'as as far as entering the bathroom. There's du'as as far as getting dressed. There's du'as about looking in the mirror. There's du'as for all type of occasions to remind us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to worship Him. And when we're mindful of the fact that our life, inshallah, should be for Allah, that our life should be a living testimony to Islam, that we, inshallah, should be those who, when people look at us, not by the way we dress, because we know in the Western world, they think that just because somebody has on a thobe or has on imama or has aliyah or something like that, that inshallah they are a Muslim. And alhamdulillah, these are all important parts of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we dress in a certain type of way. But even more importantly, a person should be able to look at us and gauge by the way that we carry ourselves that we are Muslim. There should be the way in which we interact with our neighbors, the way that we interact with people at work, the way that we interact with the public at large, that we are Muslims. We see the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I know we've heard this hadith before, but it bears repeating. One time the Sahaba Kram radiallahu anhu asked the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our mother Aisha, what is his character? She said his character is the Quran. Now that's easy to say for somebody else. Oh wow, his character was the Quran. But then it makes us realize and understand that if we're going to follow the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that in the Messenger of Allah we have a perfect pattern of conduct, then inshallah we too should strive that our character becomes the Quran. That we become a group of people, inshallah, who are concerned about the orphan. That we become a group of people who are concerned about the poor. That we become a group of people who don't indulge in stealing or lying or cheating or fornication or other things that have been mentioned in the Quran. That this becomes our way of life. And it's important that we realize that, because inshallah, one of the things that is prevalent in the West and in other parts of the world, I just don't want to say the West, the East too, there are times, many times, people just want to practice religion. And religion is what you do around other people. Religion is what you do around other people. But our iman, our faith, inshallah, is that which is tested sometimes when it's only us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For you see, you can hide from people. People don't have to see what you're doing. People don't have to see the sins that you're committing. People don't have to see a lot of things that are going on with us. But we know that, inshallah, one of the things about having faith, about having true faith, is realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees everything. And it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who will judge us by our deeds and our actions, and that which goes on in our hearts and in our minds. So inshallah, having the character of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam means sometimes biting our tongue when we don't want to. Biting our tongue when we don't want to. Because the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam warned brothers, and the same would go with sisters if you take it to the proper extent, that there are two pieces of flesh that will lead to the ruin of a man. Between two bones, he said specifically. He said one piece of flesh lies between his jawbones, and that's his tongue. The other piece of flesh lies between his thigh bones, and that's his private parts. So inshallah, we find that those two pieces of flesh many times lead people to hell, and they lead people to ruin. That the tongue many times is used indiscriminately. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us, inshallah, that we should think about the things that we say. One time, one of the great scholars of Islam told us, inshallah, that Allah has given a man 2 ears and 1 tongue, and that we should listen twice as much as we speak. That we should listen and determine what is the things that we're getting ready to say, and what impact will it have on people. I had sent out a text to one scholar who has said that our words should be like honey, and our speech should be gentle, because many times the tone of our speech has more impact than what we actually say. You can say something in a certain way, and it could be something that is derisive, or it could be something that's very vindictive or something like that, and it could be the truth, and the tone of that will not settle as much as if you speak to somebody in a gentle manner. One of the greatest dictators on the face of the earth we know was Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was one of the greatest dictators on the face of the earth. His kingdom was vast, beyond comprehension, and yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa in the Quran to go to him and speak in a gentle manner. To speak to Moses, Moses was told to speak to Pharaoh in a gentle manner, and to warn him about the things that were going to happen to him if he did not follow the commands of Almighty God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in that is a whole nother lesson for us, because it shows us how to speak truth to power. There's an expression that's used nowadays about speaking truth to power. This means that regardless of how powerful the individual is, no matter how much we think that they may harm us or cause us some difficulty, that we speak truth to them. And this was something that Musa alayhi salam showed us, because indeed, this particular powerful individual, the Pharaoh, that Musa alayhi salam boldly went before him. And then even when everybody else was opposed to what Musa alayhi salam, he spoke the truth to him. Because we find that inshallah that when the magicians of Musa alayhi salam were trying to do what they had to do, that we find that Musa alayhi salam was the one, inshallah, who continued to speak the truth. He continued to speak the truth in regards of all opposition. Well, we find that this is happening even today. That we're in a situation, inshallah, that there are many people afraid to speak the truth in the face of a tyrant. There are many people who are afraid to tell a tyrant the truth. And as Muslims, inshallah, like I said, we should have the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who spoke this truth even to tyrants. We have to remember, inshallah, that in the beginning, inshallah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was going up against a mighty earthly force, which was the Quraysh. But not only was the Quraysh a force, it was his family, because that was the tribe that he came from. These were his blood relatives in many cases. But yet and still, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke the truth to them. Regardless if it would bring about their disapproval, regardless if it would bring about their displeasure, that he spoke the truth to them. And this is one thing that we have to be brave enough to do. And the most important person that we have to speak the truth to is to ourselves. Because we know there's another ayah in the Quran, and loosely translated is, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, bear witness to the truth even if it be against yourself, your family, and your close kin, to bear witness to the truth. And that's the hardest thing many times for a man or a woman to do, to speak the truth about ourselves. It's easy to criticize other people. We see people constantly going around talking about somebody else, talking about what somebody else is doing, or talking about the faults of somebody else. But inshallah, it's more difficult when we have to speak the truth to ourselves. When we have to look into the mirror of haqq. And when we look into the mirror of haqq, the mirror of truth, inshallah, then it will show us those things about ourselves that we need to work on. We all have an inflated opinion of ourselves sometimes. One of the great scholars told us that every man is three things. That a man is who people think he is, that a man is who he thinks he is, and that a man is who he really is. Because a lot of times people may have an opinion about somebody, whether right or wrong, that will lead you into trouble. That if people think too greatly about you, they might influence you and cause you to have a situation that you become too big-headed, that you become too full of pride and arrogance. If people have too low an opinion about you and talk about you all the time, it may cause you to give up on trying. One of the things, inshallah, I sent out, inshallah, in the text today is that in the past of every righteous man is sins. In the past of every righteous man is some sins. And in the future of every wrongdoer is forgiveness. That in the future of every wrongdoer is forgiveness. So it's something to keep us balanced, that we realize, inshallah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, has been kind to each and every one of us in a lot of different ways. It's probably too innumerous for us to count. So our character should reflect that. Our character should reflect the fact, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, to lower the wing to the believer. So when you see your brother going through a difficulty, when you see your brother going through trying times, that this is not the time that you pounce upon him. This is not the time that you beat him down. This is not the time that you cause him a lot of anguish. But this is the time, inshallah, that you support him. The same way that Allah has supported us. In the same way that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a support for the people around him. This is what we should be. These are the people that we should be. These are the people, inshallah, that we should not be jealous when we see something happening with our brother. That we should be happy for him. That we should be glad that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him in a certain type of way. One of the most beautiful things that happened this week was we had some brothers come through from Chicago. There were some elder brothers, and among them there were 4 young Hafiz al-Quran. But the most inspiring thing about these 4 young brothers who had memorized the whole Quran, they all learned at a school here in the United States. This was so good to know, because inshallah, this is for our future. This is for some of these young brothers sitting out here, inshallah. That they know, inshallah, that they don't necessarily have to go thousands of miles overseas. That, inshallah, there's places here in the United States they can learn to become Hafiz al-Quran. This is a beautiful thing. Because, inshallah, this preservation of the Quran is indeed a blessing and a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this ummah. So that, inshallah, we will always have the Quran in our midst. But what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is not just the memorization of the Quran. One time, in the early days after revelation was received, and that Abu Bakr Siddiq, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, had reverted to Islam. Oh, you heard me right. The Sahaba al-Kiram were reverts. They had all reverted back to the way that Adam alayhi salam had created man, without fitna. So they had reverted back to Islam. That first great generation were reverts. And I mention that intentionally because a lot of times, those people, inshallah, who have come to Islam, who have reverted back to Islam, feel lost. They feel hopeless. They feel that they don't know enough. They feel this, they feel that. And sometimes because of us, they feel distant. They feel like we're looking down our nose at them. They feel like we don't understand them. They feel like we don't know what they're going through. So inshallah, my point is, they asked Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, he used to only recite a very little bit of Quran. And they asked him, Abu Bakr, you're Siddiq. You're the best man after the prophets. Don't you know more Quran than that? He said, yes, I know more. He said, but when I recite something and when I learn something, I try to live it. Imagine if we just lived Al-Fatiha. If we lived Al-Fatiha, that would be an accomplishment. Surah Al-Ikhlas, inshallah. 1/3 of the Quran, and yet one of the shortest surahs. If we lived in class, that would be a tremendous accomplishment. So what I'm saying is, the Sahaba Quran, radiallahu anhu, when they learned Quran, they tried to make sure it became part of their character. They tried to make sure that these just weren't empty words that they repeated like a parrot. You see, he said what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to teach them, and then they incorporated it into their lives. They incorporated it into their lives. It doesn't mean no good to be talking about reciting some ayahs about backbiting and I don't incorporate it into my life. It does no good to recite the ayahs about stealing and I don't incorporate it into my life. It does no good to read all of these ayahs of the Quran and we don't incorporate it into our lives. So much so, inshallah, that we become like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was a walking, talking Quran because it was his character. Character is very important. Look at the situation that we're going through right now. For the first time in the history of the United States, both presidential candidates are the most untrusted people that have ever run. The people trust neither one of them. They don't trust Donald Trump. They don't trust Hillary Clinton. What are they talking about? The lesser of two evils. This is not an Islamic principle that we say the lesser of two evils. That inshallah, that as Muslims, inshallah, we try to ascertain what is best, what is good. And inshallah, we try to go with that. So this is what we should do as far as our characters are concerned. Is it difficult? Of course it is. This is the reason why that we know the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam called the battle that we wage against ourselves jihad al-akbar. That is the greater jihad. That is the battle, inshallah, that a man wages with himself when he asks himself, why don't I treat my wife good? And then you have to look in yourself. Why am I a backbiter? You have to look into yourself. You see, because psychologists have found out that sometimes people who backbite other people or who constantly are criticizing or talking about other people have low self-esteem themselves. So they try to talk about other people to cast off anything on themselves. They try to talk about other people, inshallah, because they have certain deficiencies in themselves that they don't want to deal with. So this is the reason why, inshallah, that the beauty of the Quran is it makes us deal with us. It makes us deal with us. It makes us have to go within ourselves and find out what are the deficiencies that I have as a human being and do something about it. I'm not saying that just so that we sit around and lament and cry all the time, although we should cry over our sins, but let's do something about it. Let's try to transform our characters. If we have a certain degree of pride, let's do something to reduce that pride. Like I told you, one of my sheikhs, who was a great man, I won't necessarily mention his name, in Egypt, that what he does or what he did, he's deceased now, is that on every Friday, after Friday prayer, he would go around and clean the public restrooms in Cairo. He would get on his hands and knees and clean the public restrooms because it was a nasty, dirty job. And people would say, yeah, Sheikh, here you are, inshallah, you the great muhaddith, you the great this, you the great that, you're the great Qari. Why are you doing this? And he would tell them, inshallah, to keep himself in the situation that I don't hear you saying how great I am so much, for truly Allahu Akbar. These are the things that we have to do. That we have to remind ourselves that as leaders, and all of you are leaders, you're either leaders among some of your friends, you're leaders in your family, you're some type of leader. That each and one of us has a personal responsibility, inshallah, to serve the people that we lead. And this requires sacrifice on our part. Do you know that the shepherd, study about why a lot of the Anbiya were shepherds. Being the shepherd taught them, inshallah, that they had to look out for their sheep, even in times of danger. Being the shepherd taught them that they had to stay awake at night, and even though they heard the bleating of a sheep way far away, that they had to go out in the dark and face that wolf, or face that lion or whatever, and get that lost sheep. And that's the way we should be. When you see your lost brother or sister, when you see somebody suffering from something, realize that sometimes it's going to take some sacrifice on your part or my part, or sleepless hours at night to take care of that particular sheep. Ya ibadallah. So inshallah, like I said, we're trying to get the character of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this should be a lifelong goal. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نمض نصر برسوله الكريم. Character. You know, sometimes we don't pay enough attention to the type of character that we have and the example that we give to other people. And people may get mad at you for standing up for certain principles. People will see you as different. You're all familiar with the famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that it could be more, could be less. May Allah forgive me for adding or taking away from the hadith. But the gist of it is this, that Islam began as a strange thing and in the end would be a strange thing. That we would be perceived as being strangers. But the Prophet ﷺ gave us this hope. He said, blessed be the strangers. Blessed be the strangers who dress differently. Blessed be the strangers who did certain things where they slaughtered their food. Blessed be the strangers who talk differently. Blessed be the strangers, inshallah, because people are going to look at us as strange. And we're going to see them stranger and stranger as time goes on. Read the hadiths about the minor signs and the major signs of the last days. Those who hang on to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and who hold fast to the Quran, we're going to be strangers. We're going to be seen as strangers in the society. They're going to talk about the way that our women dress. They're going to say we're this, we're that, and everything else. But the Prophet ﷺ said that if we're being strange, fi sabilillah, then blessed be the strangers. That it's good to be a stranger. That it's not something that we just go along to get along. You know, there's a tendency nowadays, sometimes even among Muslims, to go along to get along. Well, you know, all of my patients or everybody who comes to my store, they celebrate Christmas. So if I just put up a little tiny Christmas tree, then it won't matter. If I just do this, if I just do that, it won't matter. Because it will cause business to go away. What price can you put on the ocular? What price can I put on the ocular? What price can we put on the fact of going to paradise? Inshallah ta'ala. So, my dear beloved brothers and sisters, we have to realize, inshallah, that having this type of character takes a lot of work. And first of all, we have to work on ourselves. We have to find some ugly things within ourselves. I know recently, inshallah, I went through a huge test myself. I'm not going to get into it. But inshallah, I had to deal with some ugly aspects of my own character. Some ugly aspects of my own character. And I had to come out of the river of denial, you know, and realize and understand that there were some things wrong with me, and the only way that I could defeat it, inshallah, was to hit them and fight them head on. And this is what we're supposed to do as men. That we don't run and hide, that inshallah, we battle things head on. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with you, then it doesn't matter if the whole world is against you. And if Allah is not on our side, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how much power you have, how many people like you, it won't matter at all. It won't matter at all. So inshallah, I'm telling each and every one of us, this is now the time. Now is the time before it's too late. Because inshallah, there'll come a time, inshallah, that our books are closed. There'll be no more writing in our book. And inshallah, we're getting ready to be judged by the Lord of the world. Our character should be such that inshallah ta'ala that our children see who we are. Because inshallah, they are with us in those times, inshallah, that we may let our guard down. So we may be trying to appear a certain kind of way in front of other people. But we let our guard down sometimes around our children. And we say things that we shouldn't say. We may talk about somebody in a way that we shouldn't talk about. You see, we may do some things in ways that we shouldn't do them, without realizing and understanding that there are little eyes upon us. They watch us every day. They see everything that we say. That you are the walking Quran to them. That you are the walking hadiths to them. That they look at you and see what you're doing. And if they see that Baba has a double standard on the way that he does things, that he talks about brothers behind their back, or that talks about sisters behind their back, if he sees us laughing and joking about different aspects of the Quran, then inshallah, that's the type of attitude that they're going to have. But one day we'll be held an account for it. One day we'll have to give an accounting of all of the things that we've done. Ya ibadallah, the time is shorter than we think. It wasn't that long ago, inshallah, that you looked in the mirror and there was a young man. I'm talking about for those of us who have gray in our hair and our beards. There was a young man staring back at you. right? A young, robust man staring back at you. And now you look at him perhaps and see somebody with stooped shoulders. You see somebody with gray. You see somebody whose eyesight isn't what they used to be. And inshallah, it reminds us that inshallah, we're getting closer and closer to a time, inshallah, that we'll be held to account. Ya ibadullah. The character. The character of a man tells you a lot about him. It's just like you're known by the company that you keep. Keep the company of righteous people. Keep the company of people who are trying to be righteous. Because you know when you go to those people who are not righteous, who are not trying to be righteous, what will their suggestion be? You know, brother, it's rough. I'm having a hard time. Well, go ahead, man, pour you a drink. Hit a blunt. Do this, do that, do the other. You're not going to get righteous advice. You go to your brother, inshallah, Akhi, make 2 rak'ah. Make istiqamah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you out. Make dua. You see, this is the importance of being around righteous people so you get righteous advice. You see, it's a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps somebody around you to give you righteous advice. Because if there ever comes a time that you have nobody around you to give you righteous advice, know that you're in trouble. Know that I'm in trouble. Ya ibadallah. I hope and I pray that each and every one of us reflects upon character and the character that we want to have. What type of person do we want to be? I'm not talking about the brother sitting next to you or in front of you. What type of person do you want to be? What type of Muslim do you want to be? And this is something that each and every one of us, each man and woman in this masjid right now, has to think about and decide upon. Who do we want to be? Because inshallah, you may not be famous, but you're writing your legacy right now. Each and every one of us is writing our legacy. You know how people talked about the legacy of Muhammad Ali when he died, and he did this and he did that and he did the other. Well, it might not be as many people come to your janazah. It might not be as many people talk about you. But inshallah, we're writing our legacy right now. How will we know? How will we be known? And I hope and I pray, inshallah, that people will be able to say, no, we may not have been perfect, but we tried to make sure that we did like Muhammad and tried to make our character like the Quran. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we come before you as sinners. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please cleanse our hearts and our minds. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to be better in all the things that we do. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to be better husbands to our wives. Ya Allah, allow our wives to be better wives to us. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to be better fathers to our children. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to be better Muslims. Allow us to realize and understand the fact that there is indeed nothing worthy of you but the Muslim worship. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we hope and we pray, inshallah ta'ala aziz, that you send your choicest peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, upon his wives, his companions, and all those who follow right guidance. Bless our Muslim brothers and sisters all over the world who are suffering. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alleviate their suffering. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bless the oppressed people and bring them to Islam.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Stop. I think you got a little bit more. Inshallah, make sure our rows are straight. Stall. Allahu Akbar. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. بسم الله. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Inshallah, a couple of announcements to make. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the opportunity to do some things, inshallah, and I'll be very brief. And what I'm talking about, inshallah, we may not see the importance of it, but every week it's manifested more and more the effects of the little thing we do on Saturday between 2 and 5. Every week there's more and more people who want to know about what Islam is. Every week there's more and more people inquiring about what are we doing. So inshallah, I want to mention again, inshallah, that we need your help, inshallah. If you can, put as much as you can in the salsa box, inshallah. If you can, more importantly, come and help out. Take some time out of your life and sacrifice. Come down here and help cook. Come down here and help give dawah. A lot of you have a lot of knowledge and information about Islam. You have a lot of knowledge about Islam. So inshallah, come and help out. Tell us what you know. Tell us what you think. Inshallah ta'ala aziz. Let's make this even better. So inshallah, we're asking for your support. Also, we have a talim, inshallah, on Sunday. Inshallah, we go over the khutbah. There's a lot of you who have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. Inshallah, come and share it with us. This is a joint effort. We need everybody's help. We need everybody's help. So inshallah, like I said, if you can just give an hour, a half hour, whatever. Inshallah, we need buns. We need turkey burgers. We have plenty of hot dogs. Alhamdulillah, somebody blessed us with a lot of hot dogs we still have left. We do hamburger buns, hot dog buns. We need your financial support. So inshallah, please, inshallah, this is an opportunity for us to get a lot of barakah. And inshallah, maybe because of your efforts, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might change somebody's heart and they become Muslim. So inshallah, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu
alaikum. Say hi to the people. You're live. Oh, okay. Assalamu alaikum.
On Facebook?
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Say hi. You're live on Facebook.
Assalamu alaikum. You need to be down here with the rest of the brothers, making salat. One God.
Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us. Anything that I said is incorrect, it's totally my fault because God is free and perfect from all defaults, and I'm just an imperfect human being. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.